How to obtain all 8 faceless masks in horrific visions for patch 11.1.5. Now, if you don't know what masks are, they're just little, they're basically like a mythic plus affix, right, on these runs. The more masks you add, the harder it gets. Each mask's at its own little twist on a horrific vision run. There's 8 masks this season. Right now, this first week, you can get 5 of them already. Eventually, you want to get all 8, not just for achievements and everything else, but because it's going to give you better loot. It's also going to give you some access to some of the mounts, like the Void Cycle and things. There's things you got to do with all 8 masks active to actually get the best of the best here. So, going through here, how do we get all 8 masks? Let's see what Dalaran Gaming has to say.
Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and today marks the return of Horrific Visions, a unique bit of content for Battle for Azeroth, resurrected and revived for the War Within expansion.
True, Chaos.
With Visions being a scenario of a corrupted version of Orgrimmar or Stormwind, giving players an ability to delve deeper, managing your sanity, fighting actually challenging enemies, while also an opportunity to earn a ton of different rewards, from some of the more obvious ones from challenging runs, but also some of the most secret rewards from mounts, pets, cosmetics, and so much more. Now, the base runs of Visions, however, are going to be very doable for many of you, not really requiring too much gear. Where Visions do rank up in difficulty, but also in the rewards, is when you can start enabling a affix system called masks. Masks are affixes you need to find within Visions, some of which have very specific requirements of how to unlock. Masks help increase the difficulty of Visions, but also increase the rewards you can obtain at the end of a run. And the idea is you want to find as many masks and enable as many of them as you can in order to get the most out of every single one of your runs. But first, you need to find them. So for this video, I'm going to go over exactly how to unlock every single one of these masks in order to increase your efficiency runs for your future Visions going forward. As always, though, if you guys want to get more regular updates for the War Within expansion, or potentially more guides for the Horrific Visions, like how to unlock some of the different mounts and different collectibles, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise,
damn, did he just loot double mounts? He just looted 2 mounts in a single run. What the hell? He got is the pig a mount? He also got the void birdie boy too. Damn, that's some good loot right there. Wow.
Now, there's quite a number of masks for you to be able to collect during the return of BFA Visions. 5 of them are the same original masks from the original mode, but then there's 3 extra ones that were added for the return specifically, which adds quite a lot more challenge to the Visions, but also even greater rewards. And I want to go over all of these masks and how to acquire them in the likely order that you're probably going to end up acquiring all of them, starting with the Mask of a Long Night, which will be one of the very first ones that you'll discover at the very beginning. This one is your first mask that you obtain because you first need to complete all the side objectives within a single visit to Horrific Vision.
So complete all 4
if you have the Orgrimmar Vision, you'll need to do all of the side stuff like the Drag, as well as the Valley of Honor, and Valley of Spirits together with Valley of Wisdom, and then you go Slay Thrall, and then once you complete basically the entirety of Vision, you'll be able to unlock your very first mask as a reward for do the whole Vision completion. In one run. This mask will help you unlock all of the other masks afterwards. Now, with the Mask of the Long Night, it actually has a very simple effect, but also one that's actually quite deadly, as it reduces your maximum sanity by 50%, giving you a lot less sanity to work with when it comes to stacking all of these masks. But essentially, it's going to be the first mask that you'll most likely will end up using in order to unlock a majority of all the other masks. Now, the next 4 masks that you can obtain while wearing the Mask of the Long Night, those are the ones that were available back during BFA, and those are all...
One thing I will say about the Long Night is if you wait until next week, once we are able to get to the Orgrimmar, because right now the max corruption resistance you can possibly get is 50%. Eventually it's going to be 90 once we finally unlock the Orgrimmar version of this, which is next week. But right now it's 50. You get 10% for each zone you kill and then clear, and then there's the 10% from the little tree, the hourglass tree that we're filling out right now. So it's 50%. I guess if you're going to use the that mask and it's a little bit tough for you right now, next week it should be easier once you get the other 40% corruption resistance, taking you up to 90%. This way, even though your corruption strength by 50%, you're 90% more resistant, so it almost offsets it.
Those are the ones that were available back during BFA.
Now, enemies do more damage too, so you gotta still worry about that.
As for masks, you just have to complete some of the more darker, more scarier parts of a Vision. So in Vision of Orgrimmar, while one mask is active, you need to complete the Valley of Honor to get the next mask and then Slay Thrall. For the other one, you need to complete Valley of Wisdom and then Slay Thrall. So you can technically put on the mask, complete both objectives, go kill Thrall, and then obtain
And then
two
get
more
two more
masks
masks,
added.
yeah.
For the Stormwind side of Visions, you'll need to obtain masks after defeating the challenges bosses from the Old Town area as well as the Mage Quarter, and then complete the Vision run afterwards defeating Alarium. And that's one of the easiest ways that you'll be able to earn 4 additional masks, those being the Burned Bridge, Daredevil, Pained, and the Dark Imagination mask. Going through all of their effects, the Burned Bridge mask...
So that's why you can only get... you can't get the Orgrimmar masks yet, because Orgrimmar's not available yet, which is why you can only really unlock 5 masks this week.
It does is it creates void zones as you move around, which will drain your sanity, which means that you'll have to be a little bit more careful when it comes to positioning, but you can definitely pin yourself into a corner if you're constantly shuffling around or trying to avoid abilities.
If I wait, it will be easier. Yes, it will be easier. Once you clear the Orgrimmar version of this, your sanity resistance will go up. So yeah, it will be easier.
Make avoiding things just a little bit harder, but it's not the most challenging mask whatsoever. The Mask of the Daredevil, however, very similar to the Long Night, this one will also have a more impact on your sanity, increasing the amount of sanity damage you take from enemy creatures and abilities by 400%. So this stacks together with a reduced sanity limit, and taking more sanity damage can definitely make things a little bit more scary. With the Mask of the Paint, you will now deal with 2 madnesses in each area of horrific vision instead of 1. Madnesses are kind of like zone-wide affixes when you first enter an area. Like, for example, in the main Grommash Hold area, you'll have a madness of Bloodthirsty, but it'll actually give you an additional...
you could get 5 this week. He'll get into the other ones, but right now he's mentioned 3 of them. The first one plus the 2 zones that you can kill while wearing the first one. So that puts you at 3. There's still 2 more that he hasn't mentioned.
Those are usually beneficial madnesses, but as you delve deeper into visions, they do become a little bit spookier. In the second layer, or like the second scariest layer, you get things like entomophobia, where you'll have crawlies all over the character, which will cause you to, which will just mean you'll have to jump around from time to time just to clear them.
But I remember this mask from BFA. The worms show up on your screen and you have to jump to make them fall off, basically.
Additional debuff on top of it. And as you get further into like some of the scarier parts, like Valley of Honor, for example, you'll unlock some of the more tougher madnesses like Split Personality, which every so often you'll find these images that'll pop up around you. They'll kind of make almost like a circle around your character while giving you a couple of exit points. This can definitely make it a little bit harder when you're trying to dodge enemy abilities while also dodging these split personality enemies. And then you'll get an extra madness like maybe movement reduction as you move within combat, which can definitely make things a little bit more difficult in dodge heavy situations. So it essentially just adds an extra hurdle for you to deal with while within these zones, which in some cases for some encounters can actually be kind of terrifying altogether. Now the last one of the list of that quartet will be Dark Imagination, and with this one you will now spawn horrific figments that will chase you around and attack you whenever you're found below 50 energy. They don't spawn regularly, they spawn kind of occasionally, but it does give you an extra enemy for you to deal with, which in some cases can potentially get you caught a little off guard. Now, there are 3 more masks that have been added afterwards for the return of this event that add even more challenge, but also have very specific ways of how to acquire them to begin with. So this mask being a Mask of Vengeance. And when you actually want to find how you get some of these masks, the new ones have a little bit better description as to how you find them. So when you hit how to find these faceless masks, this one tells you located between Scrutiny and Steel Bars. It's a reference to Stormwind. It's actually a reference to an area between Old Town as well as Trade District. And there you'll essentially have to find enemies within the canals area in order to get yourself a Mask of Vengeance, found specifically from vengeful Void Speakers. Specifically, the area between Old Town and District will be the canals here, so you'll have to look out for vengeful Void Speakers in the canals area, and then slay as many of them as you can until you obtain the Mask of Vengeance.
So the Mask of Vengeance is the 4th mask you'll be able to get this week. There's still 1 more.
It's pretty easy to acquire, though you will have to have at least 1 mask active in order to be able to obtain this mask like all of the others.
Got it.
And the Mask of Vengeance is very similar to the bolster mechanic from older variations of Mythic Plus seasons. So essentially, as you slay an enemy, it'll actually cause a roar, which empowers all other enemies around it with vengeance, increasing their damage done. This effect can definitely be very deadly in certain trash packs. Like if you have, let's say, 1 big elite and a bunch of little fodder weak enemies around them, if you slay all the weak enemies, they'll just empower the big elite. So you could turn something that's a very manageable encounter into one that could potentially be very difficult and deadly, especially if the elite can deal sanity damage that cannot really be dodged or avoided in any way. Or it could potentially even one-shot you in some cases if you're not careful. So imagine this mask in the rest of the run, however, as enemies die, they start to empower one another, which means that throughout a vision run, you'll have to be very careful which enemy you focus on first and slay the highest priority enemy ahead of everything, to make sure that that enemy isn't empowered. The next mask is going to be of Nemesis. This is actually really cool, but reading how to find it, it actually is a little bit more direct as to how you obtain it. It talks about a bane of the forest and fields that still lives, and while locked away for a while, is now wanted again as they terrorize those resisting the call of Stormwind. So that's talking about Hogger, who's trapped up in the stockades area. So that'll be found near the Mage Tower area, or the Mage District. Right before you enter it, head over to the right towards Stockades. You'll find a wanted poster to spawn Hogger. Defeat him to obtain his shard. For this one, you'll want to defeat Hogger and Stormwind, but then you also want to go back to Orgrimmar and
so this
take
one you can't get it yet.
Fearless, overzealous, this hero of Orgrimmar, who is Gammon, which can be
won't remember any of this. No, but chat will, so you guys will remind me.
Found in the broken tusk.
That's why you're here.
Where he normally resides. Click his axe to spawn the elite to obtain his shards. Combine both of the shards together in order to obtain the mask of the Nemesis. Now, with this mask active, a Nemesis will spawn every 25 kills within a horrific vision. So as you kill enemies, it'll tick down a timer, and once you slay 25, either Hogger or Gammon will spawn to attack you. This enemy is going to be an elite variation of Hogger or Gammon, which has the benefits like when slaying elites, you can actually regain sanity if you got enough upgrades within your upgrade system for the horrific vision. So it may actually be good to spawn this guy at a convenient time in order to regain some resources. But he will have also sanity breaker mechanics, so you have to be very, very careful to avoid all of their attacks. Where this Nemesis mask becomes a little bit heavy is if you're not paying attention to the damage counter, or the kill counter rather, you can spawn this Hogger or the Gammon
during a boss
while
fight.
You're fighting a bunch of enemies, and this can be really, really tough if you're fighting a very tough trash pack. Plus, you also got this extra Nemesis elite attacking you at the same time. So you have to be
so is that the counter? That's the counter right there, so it shows it. Okay.
Very, very careful, like with the Mask of Vengeance, as to which enemies you slay, and plan your route accordingly to make sure you don't have Hogger or Gammon spawning in at the same time as you're fighting a boss or something. Now, the last mask to obtain is the Mask of...
Ooh. Ramen, thank you for the raid, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bringing in more here.
Multitudes. And for this one...
Sorry for that guy who just got raided into here.
It's a very, very simple one.
It's a shitty stream.
While a mask is active, actually, while 3 masks are active...
Thank you, man.
Stand corrected. While at least 3 masks are active, you need to complete the entirety of either Orgrimmar or Stormwind Vision in order to obtain this one. So it's a simple acquisition method that does have a little bit of challenge to it, at least early on. But you can run some of the easier masks to obtain this one specifically. Now, with the Mask of Multitudes active, you'll essentially start to spawn in more enemies throughout visions. You'll see a lot more elites, especially in some of the earlier parts of a vision, and even some trash packs do get swapped out for stronger ones instead. So you'll be finding slightly stronger enemies and generally more enemies throughout a vision, which can have impacts on things like the Mask of Vengeance with the buff mechanic, or even the Mask of Nemesis, meaning that you'll be spawning Hogger or Gammon a lot more frequently.
Right.
Now, ideally, you want to try to maximize as many masks as possible per run, because the more masks you run, the more displaced corrupted mementos you can get. Which means the more of them you run, the more mounts, the more pets, cosmetics, and all the other items you can obtain.
That thing wasn't how many enemies killed, it was how many masks were active? Okay, my bad.
You'll need to do less vision runs in order to be able to obtain every single one of the unique items for this event. However, running all masks active at the same time is kind of brutal, because that's essentially the hard mode of the visions. And it's not going to be for everybody, at least not early on. But you still do want to maximize the amount of masks you can and run as many of as you can comfortably, where you can still finish the runs without dying or failing those runs, so you don't wasting any time, whilst you'll be able to get the most amount of mementos possible. And there's actually an order of which masks you should enable first, starting with the easiest and then ending with the hardest. So if you are going to be enabling masks, one of the best ones that you can enable early on is Burn Bridge, as it just gives you a little bit of those positional requirements, but nothing super crazy. But definitely one of the easier masks to pick up within a single vision run. Dark Imagination is also not that bad, since managing sanity, if you do it correctly, you should never really be below 50% sanity in most cases, so you're not ever really dealing with that affix whatsoever. Nemesis is also another that's a decent one, as all you have to do is count how many enemies you slay before Hogger or Gammon spawns, but with that enemy being elite, they actually help you restore your sanity. So you can actually use them strategically in order to maintain your sanity fairly regularly.
You kill them, you get the boost to your sanity, that's right, because they're an elite mob.
Mask of Vengeance is also not bad, like Nemesis, as long as you're slaying the right foes and focusing down on what enemies to slay.
Yeah, I'm going to 8 mask next week, for sure. Yeah, for sure, next week I'm doing 8 masks easily.
First,
maybe it'll make it actually a challenge.
Basically control that affix fairly well. Daredevil is another one that's also pretty good because some enemy attacks that deal sanity damage can actually be avoided. So if you are very careful and aware of what attacks do hit your sanity and you can avoid them pretty regularly, then Daredevil is not something you have to worry about. The same thing in a way for Long Night, though it does make the runs a little bit scarier because reducing that sanity by 50% does make it a little bit more challenging. It means you can't really make too many mistakes, but at that point, that's where you're starting to get some really difficult runs with that combination. And the last two masks that you can enable that are some of the more difficult ones to deal with would be Pained, as well as Multitudes, which spawns multiple different enemies throughout a run, which can make some of the runs a little bit more challenging. And essentially, you kind of want to start enabling these masks by one in that order, from Burn Bridge, Dark Imagination, Nemesis, Vengeance, Daredevil, then Long Night, Pained, and Multitudes if you're comfortable with it, stacking as many as possible, stacking the easier affixes first in order to have as many valuable runs per vision, in order to be able to farm up as many of those corrupted mementos while making sure that you're not failing any of these runs. Since you can run visions as much as you want to, you can actually go very low mask count if you wish, but it's just a little bit more efficient to increase your mask count.
Yeah, having like masks was more important in the previous version of horrific visions because you could only do so many horrific visions in a week. You had to go out, run, grind out the currency, do all that shit to be able to go into a vision in the first place. So making that vision as give you as much loot as possible is really important because you just weren't going to have enough time to go do an infinite amount of visions. Now, like yesterday, you guys saw me. I don't know how many I did, but it's just like insta-queue. You're just running around, get another one. So do masks matter as much? Not really anymore, because if you just want to do an easier mode but do multiple runs, you can do that now. Now, if you want things like the Void Cycle and things like that, those do require you to put in all the masks. So you're going to have to eventually do that if you want to get achievements and mounts and stuff like that. But if you're just in it for the coins or for some of the transmog, you can just do it this way.
Plus, there's also some unique rewards based on how many masks you run. So, as you get more comfortable adding on more masks, and as you can complete more runs, as let's say you get better gear from Visions, which is actually a pretty good source of gear and currencies as well. As you get more comfortable with the runs and add more masks, you can actually eventually do a full mask run to obtain some of the best rewards out there. But with that being said, as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community, especially if you got any questions regarding visions or need any more help finding some of the unique items and objectives, or if you're looking for more guides and suggestions for me to make for future videos. Also, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.
All right, nice video from Dell. Get all the masks, 8 faceless masks, 5 available this week, the rest available next week when Orgrimmar goes live. One little tidbit there. If you want the Gammon / Hogger mask, you gotta kill Hogger this week, because once the Orgrimmar one goes live, the Stormwind one goes down. So if you didn't get Hogger this week, you will not be eligible to get that mask next week once you kill Gammon. So just a little tip there. Make sure you kill Hogger before the Stormwind one goes away, otherwise you have to wait for it to come back. But overall, nice video here from Dalaran.